Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our presentation today on what's new in Product Design Suite 2017. My name is Anthony Rodriguez. I'm here with Jorge Fernandez, who's one of our senior application engineers, and we're looking forward to sharing with you what's new. I know we've already been talking to several customers. Many of you have started using 2017, and calls also on just curious what is new. So we're excited. There's a lot of new features in the products. We've shown you some of what's new in our AVA session on Inventor and AutoCAD, but this will really summarize everything in Product Design Suite and give you a good broad overview of all of the capabilities included, and not just one product, but all of the abilities in the suite. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. I look forward to sharing this with you. Do stay on until the very end. We will have a live Q&A. So as you have questions, be sure to enter those questions in the question panel. And Jorge and I will stay on as long as it takes to really address all the questions that come in live with you. So we look forward to that as well. With that, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So really the agenda today is we want to start by sharing with you a little bit about where Autodesk is headed from a design solution standpoint. And we're going to talk about Autodesk Product Innovation Platform, which will give you a good feel of the direction Autodesk is taking and where their investments are going to take the products that you're using today. The second thing we'll talk about is Jorge will give you the technical demonstration on what's new in Product Design Suite. We'll talk about some of the things you can do next based on the information you learn. And then again, we will have the live Q&A to discuss and answer all the questions that you have. So I want to talk first off, again, rather than jump into the exact features in Product Design Suite, I thought it was important to share with the entire audience where Autodesk's investments are headed in the product. Why are they developing certain things that you see in the product? And just from a high level, kind of give you a roadmap in the direction they're taking, not just with the design tool, but the entire product development process. And all of us are familiar with, fairly traditional product development process where we start with a concept. Our products then need to be designed and prepared for manufacturing so they can ultimately be produced. We're all selling a product if we're manufacturers, which looking at the list, most of us are. We then create a product that gets operated in the field, and ultimately that product is retired. And when we look at working with customers today, typically, they have a process similar, but where they're looking to increase profits on developing their product are primarily around material costs. If they can reduce material costs, reduce prototypes, they can generate more profit from selling their product. And then the second area is if they can become more efficient. All right, by driving more efficiency in your business, you can tend to drive more profit in your product. And if you stay on top of those two areas, you'll remain competitive. But I have to say, when we talk to manufacturers today, it's becoming more and more difficult for those two areas to really drive competitiveness. Your competitors typically catch up with efficiency gains. Material costs typically get passed through the industries you're in, and you end up always fighting to stay ahead and keep your cost competitive. So Autodesk is really focused on looking at technology that exists today and really driving technology in the market to give us a new way to look at this product development process. So in the concept stage, as an example, I know a lot of customers I talk to, especially in the consumer market, the medical device market, markets where you're selling to an end consumer. There's customers expect today to be able to personalize their products. I see this even evolving into industrial machinery, industrial products, where customers want to drive what their product might look like, how it might function, and they want some personalization and customization built into that product right out of the gate. We have to have the ability to collaborate with a variety of teams. Today, there's engineer talent we want to tap into around the world. There's manufacturers and other resources around the world, and just communicating information by email, communicating information on collaboration tools is not enough. We need the ability to see the product real time, be able to design a product together real time, even if we're in opposite parts of the world. And from a production standpoint, we all know that there's a variety of new production techniques that exist, whether it's additive or subtractive manufacturing trends. Robotics are becoming bigger and bigger, and we have to be able to take advantage of those in our product development process. And then ultimately, the customer experience, what customers are wanting to experience, is those demands are greater than they've ever been. They want to be able to interact with our product early on in the process. They want to be able to interact on a variety of devices and have input into what they're going to end up using. And then at the tail end, when we create a product and we ship that product out to customers, every customer I talk to today, whether it's an industrial machinery manufacturer, industrial product manufacturer, in a variety of industries, they're looking at ways to prevent maintenance when their product is in the field. And by having a product that is always connected, reporting information back to you, it gives our customers, when they follow this process, the ability to create more value in a product that they sell. And that value ultimately gives us the ability to create a product almost as a service. So as an example, I was talking to recently a pump manufacturer, and this pump manufacturer was looking to develop their product. It would report back information prior to the pump failing, and they were going to create profits from that product by selling maintenance contracts. And these maintenance contracts would give them the ability to always monitor that pump when it was in the field, see how that pump was behaving, and be able to fix that pump before the pump actually broke based on the input that it was getting back. And when you look at laying these new technologies, new approaches on top of a traditional product development process, it really helps us build more lifetime value from our product. And we call this a more agile product development process, and it's really what we see as a future of making things. And as I talk to more and more customers, we see this really resonate. Now, in order to benefit from all of this, we have to have a platform that gives us the ability to design and build these functions into our product. And at the center, which is why we're all here, we have Product Design Suite with Fusion capabilities built into Product Design Suite. And Jorge is going to talk about this, obviously, in a little bit, and give us some of the new enhancements to Product Design Suite and some of the Fusion capabilities with Product Design Suite. Product Design Suite obviously focuses on design. We all know that. We're starting to not just create digital prototypes, but we're starting to create products that we can see behave, predict failure prior to ever building these. We have things like electronics, electrical components, all integrated within our design now. We ultimately need to be able to make that design and use that design. And this is really important for us to all understand where Autodesk is headed. Is when you look at a product design suite with Fusion, we're not looking at that as a design tool or as a model. Autodesk is investing in those products and creating a platform that gives us the ability to design, look at how that part's going to be made, and ultimately how that part's going to be used and connected back to us when it hits the field. And this is really the only complete solution that exists today when you look at those three components. And when you look at some of the unique capabilities that Product Design Suite gives us today, just from a design standpoint, and I encourage all of you to use this, look at some of the training sessions online we've done. One of the things that jumps out at me is generative design. When you look at the compute power that exists today, what's going to be really important for engineers and our customers to grasp is how do I define the parameters that are necessary to build the product I need. Okay, and if I'm able to define what those parameters are, what the requirements are, the computer will be able to generate shapes that meet the requirements and create shapes that typically are not going to be generated by a human from a design standpoint. The shapes will be created quickly. They'll be created based on the strength requirements, the material you're using, and ultimately give you the lightest weight component, lightest weight design that meets the requirements that you're looking to meet. And from a make standpoint, capabilities like 3D printing, robotics, CAM, those things all need to be factored into your design. They should no longer be a secondary step or an afterthought. They really need to be factored into your design as you're creating your product. And then again, as we create our products and we start seeing connected services, Autodesk has a product called C-Control, and we'll see more and more of those abilities built into the product design suite with Fusion as we move forward, so that we're creating a product that meets its requirements, that's made well, that when it gets to the customer is always alive, reporting information back, and we still have the ability to influence how that product behaves in the field. And this is really the product innovation platform. And I thought it was important before we jump into the actual features for everyone to understand where Autodesk is investing, what their long-term vision is with the product. And you'll see what Jorge shows today, how it relates to a lot of the areas we've just talked about. So again, I want everyone to feel free to ask questions as Jorge presents. We'll definitely cover those as at the end of our session. And make sure you take notes and start using some of these new abilities. You'll see a lot of powerful capabilities. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jorge.
All right, thanks, Anthony. So yeah, there's quite a few things we're going to be looking at in the product design suite that relates back to making sure we have this platform for you. We'll look at some innovative workflows, different things that are going to enable you to do things that you might have wanted to do before or haven't explored yet because you didn't feel it was at your fingertips. We'll look at some of the design enhancements in Inventor and AutoCAD, for example, so you can see how things have been improved in order for you to be able to work on your designs a little more efficiently. There's also areas of interoperability that have been improved and added to the different products, and then different ways we can communicate amongst the different tools inside or outside your organization. So as I mentioned, the first thing we're going to look at is innovative workflows and how we can work within the tools that we have available to us to think outside of the box and do just a little bit more than the traditional things we were used to doing before. The first thing I want to bring up is that if you haven't heard of this yet, it's called Autodesk Print Studio. So Autodesk has invested in the 3D printing area by looking at something like Print Studio, which allows us to take a better look at how we can heal geometry if we've scanned it in, for example, how we can better prepare it so that when we actually go to print it, we can see how it's going to print. So in this little example you're seeing here, for example, we're able to see the structure that is going to hold this up and allow us to actually do a 3D print of this. What's really great is they're actually allowing us to have this capability in different areas. Some of you might be using AutoCAD still to import some of this stuff. It's actually included with AutoCAD. You might be using Inventor. It's also inside of Inventor. So no matter which one you're using, oh, and Fusion, by the way, I apologize, I forgot that one. No matter which 3D design tool you're using, or 2D in this case even, you'll have access to Autodesk Print Studio. We do have more information on these, so I picked some of the top key points and highlights, but we do have more videos like the What's New in AutoCAD 2017, for example, that goes over how to do it from AutoCAD. Another really great addition this year is Autodesk Remake. Currently it's called Memento. It's going to be changed to Remake this month. If you do a Google search for it, for example, and want to download the actual application. But this gives us reality capture. We've heard of it before in different forms. We've heard of being able to take pictures with your phone, for example, being able to import it. We've looked at importing cloud data, for example. What this is going to give us the ability to do is make those into 3D meshes. Why do we want to do that, though? There's different reasons. One, maybe design and engineering. Maybe you need to do reverse engineering, for example, and you need to be able to take something that's already out there and be able to make some more adjustments to it for attachment points or something like that. Maybe it's something that's really old and you need to do a retrofit and you need to bring those in and account for it in engineering. Or maybe if there's some of you that might be using a factory design suite even, and you need to do asset creation. You know, you're seeing a pump, for example, on screen right now, and this gives you the ability to bring it in as meshes and be able to actually reuse it. You'll see it come up a couple times throughout this presentation, actually, how we can use these types of things. Maybe it's an archive and you want to take an as-is approach and look at what you have currently either in your factory or inside of a machine to be able to document it, inspect it a little bit further. And maybe even digital fabrication in the sense of 3D printing it all over again. Maybe you need to make it again, reuse it, make a mold out of it, and so forth. There's a lot of different areas, different reasons for using things like this. You know, I'm just bringing up a couple more examples of bringing up an as-is, or you know, making sure you're able to put an asset on the floor, or something that's a reference to, you know, the project that you might be working on. So let me show you an example of that, actually. I'm going to show you Memento, or Remake. What we have the ability here to do is we actually have the scanned data that came in, and what we can do is I'm going to turn on the actual mesh on here, and you'll see it's pretty refined here. It brings it in, it's pretty tight. What we have the ability to do, though, is actually change this mesh so we can actually reuse it. So we'll come over here to some of the tools that allow us to to change the mesh a little bit, and what we call decimating, which means we bring the quality down just a little bit more so we can actually work with it a little bit further. So we'll bring it down to about 100 here, and we'll simply apply that. And what it's going to do now, it's going to change the mesh for us. It's going to allow us to then be able to reuse this in other areas, which we'll see in just a moment. But if I were to zoom into some of these areas, there's some really jagged edges because it's too detailed, but we might want to change some of this. We might want to start playing with it and be able to adjust it, right? So we're letting it do its the work here. It finished up the mesh for us. We can see it here. It's not as detailed anymore, and we can actually start working with it by exporting it. And when we export it, we can export a 3D model of this and be able to say we want to export it as an STL file, OBJ, or what we call OBJ quads. Why I bring this up is exporting it to this is going to allow me to have a smaller face count and then take it to something like Fusion and be able to use T-splines to actually manipulate this. So again, Memento is going to allow us to get it to a point that we can actually start manipulating it. So let's go over to Fusion now and take a look at how exactly we are able to do that. Inside of here, I'm able to go to my T-splines environment, sculpting environment, and insert a mesh. As we come over here, we can just simply pick on the OBJ quads file that we just created. And very quickly, we now have a model we can actually use. There's one more thing we need to do in order to do that, and that's coming over here and saying that I want to go to my utilities and actually convert it, this entire mesh. And so we're harnessing the power of the cloud here to get us T-spline information that we can actually model. So you see here, it was able to subdivide this entire thing, and now I can actually work with these surfaces. I can choose these different ones, for example, and decide, okay, I need to modify this just a little bit more. I'm doing a little bit of reverse engineering, but I'm also wanting to change it just a little bit. So I can now move my arrows, for example, and manipulate this. Something we really couldn't do before, right? And if we did, we'd have to figure out different ways to do it. Now we can do that within the tools that we have available to us within the design suite. There's even times when you do something like this and you don't realize what things might be wrong with this. So when I finish this form, it'll actually let you know, hey, there's an actual edge that is overlapping and is not working as you expect. So it allows you to go back to it, and it actually highlights it for you and shows you where you have overlapping surfaces. At which point then we can just decide we need to delete some of these surfaces, for example. And then we can use tools in here to be able to fill in our holes. So that just shows you a little bit, about using that Memento again, workflows to be a little more innovative, to reuse geometry you might have not done before, really start working outside of the box for these types of things. So now let's look at some design enhancements. So some of you might have already heard of Shape Generator. It actually was released in 2016 in R2, but they've worked on it just a little bit more, listened to the audience, of course, and gotten your feedback by going to idea stations. Some of the things they've enhanced in it is, for example, giving you a little more visual feedback and interactive controls. So, for example, you're seeing this part here, and there's these arrows around this green box that allow you to use this restricted region option and use these arrows to actually grow that a little bit more and tell it which regions you need to make sure you preserve. You can also use symmetry control. So in other words, if I wanted to also preserve this bottom region, I can use symmetry to do that. And I can also target a mass or a certain percentage that I need to reduce this part by. So these are, again, enhancing it a little bit more so that you have the opportunity to make better parts. For those of you using sheet metal, there's been some enhancements here as well. If you've used the punch tool inside of it before, there's a setting that allows you to change how you're representing it globally. But what you can now do is, if you're using your punch tool, you can select which punch tools exactly you'd like to do that for, so that you have a 2D representation or even just a center mark for it instead. There's also some corner relief enhancements that have been created. You'll see there's a longer list of reliefs that you can put for your corners for sheet metal. Another really nice enhancement also is defer update. Sometimes we're making changes to our 3D parts, and you don't want to necessarily update the flat pattern just yet. So we have the opportunity to do a defer update now. And for those of you using Vault, I thought I'd throw some of that into this as well. One of the really nice things is Autodesk is looking at how we're using the tool and trying to give us the ability to use it, in our workflows. So naturally, a lot of times we're inside of Vault Explorer, and you need to basically place that file into the assembly you have open. You now have place into CAD, so that you don't have to go in Vault Explorer, then go back over to Inventor and find the file again and place it. You can do it straight from the Vault Explorer. Those of you using Copy Design, you can also use a folder view now. I know I've spoken to some of our customers that like to actually use the folders and copy them. And finally, find and replace path. This is, again, something that came from idea stations, things that people have asked for in the past, and we have the ability to do now. I didn't forget about those folks using AutoCAD, by the way. If you've used the centerline, automatic centerline creation, for example, in Inventor, we now have smart center lines inside of AutoCAD. I know for some of us that use AutoCAD, this could be a big thing. We've had center lines before, right, by changing the line type, but now we have the ability to actually have a center mark tool and a center line tool. Again, all these things that we just covered right now are part of our Autodesk Virtual Academy, and you can see more videos on that. And you can also go to our KETIV channel on YouTube and access some of this information, by the way. The next thing I wanted to cover was interoperability improvements. Now, it's really important for us to be able to work with files that came from other vendors. Maybe we download them from GrabCAD or something like that, step files, STL files, and so forth. How have we improved in that area? One of the first things I'll bring up is PDF really is an operability tool, right? We can actually bring in the PDF into AutoCAD. We've been able to do that before as an underlay. Now we can actually import it and import the PDF geometry as AutoCAD objects, making it vector information. I'm pausing there for just a moment, not for dramatic effect, but because that is a huge thing, right? To be able to bring in that PDF, vectorize it. You don't have to use raster design necessarily to bring that in, scan something in and bring it in. You can just bring in that PDF and start using the information off of it. For those of you that might have known, last year we had something called AnyCAD. And AnyCAD is a feature and a workflow inside of Inventor, not an add-on or anything like that, that allows us to bring in step files, for example, and use them as references so that we don't have to import them into Inventor and make it an Inventor model. Now we can actually use step files for this as well. That's something that before we would still have to bring in and translate it into Inventor. Now we can use it as a reference model. That way, if someone sends me an update, I just replace the file, I have the new update. I don't have to worry about re-importing, reconstraining, and things of that nature. And these updates happen faster as well. So we've seen some improvements in the speed as well. So I talked earlier about Memento, right, and bringing in a mesh, for example. Now we have the ability to bring in STL files and OBJ files, even though they're meshes, and we're able to constrain to these parts. So previously this was an issue. You'd have to bring it in. You'd have to figure out how you're going to put it in your assembly as well. Now we can actually constrain to them, find interference detection, and use them in here like as if it were an inventor part file. And I didn't want to leave those. I know this is a product design suite update, but I also wanted to make sure this is a pretty nice enhancement for those factory users or those of you that might have other individuals in your corporation that use factory. We have the ability to manage the assets inside of Vault. So prior to this, you could still do it, but it was more of a manual way. Now you actually have the ability to have Vault manage those assets as well as do rev control for them and figure out exactly where you've used them. I talked a little bit about multi-CAD with AnyCAD earlier, but now another nice enhancement is if you're using Vault and you're bringing in these different types of files now, and you're using Vault Professional, you can actually assign items to them now. You can map properties for these files as well that you're using inside of Inventor. Another really nice addition for all is save copy as to Vault. So you can actually, if you're making a PDF or a DXF, for example, inside of Inventor, a lot of times you'd have to do that save copy as, then go and manually put it in Vault. Now you can automatically add it to Vault by save copy as Vault to Vault. Now let's show you a really quick a little bit about that mesh handling. I thought that was a nice little piece to show where sometimes you have an assembly and you decide, well, I have an STL file that I either downloaded or got from somebody that scanned this, for example. Now I can go to Place and you see I can bring in this STL. You have options for it to change what units you might be using for it and where you're going to save for it. Open it up without importing it, in other words, trying to translate it or anything like that, and I can simply start placing it right inside of my assembly as I would expect to any other part. So just to show you that really quick, I'm going to use the joint command here to be able to align it to the center between here as a rotational. I'm going to choose this option to choose between two faces.
And while Jorge does that, this is Anthony, one of the big benefits we see to this capability is I know I personally talked to a lot of companies who are importing things like IGES files, step files, files like Jorge's import into their model. And when you import or translate a model, your file size tends to really get large and less reliable. And by simply using this feature to not translate and import, but reference to it, it's definitely going to save you in terms of performance and file size. So something to keep in mind and definitely start using instead of an import, unless you need to actually change the geometry.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, Anthony, because changing geometry, a lot of times we bring in this model, we need to reverse engineer it just a little bit more. So we also have the ability to take this and be able to reuse it by simply creating a sketch, for example, and now we can actually project geometry of this mesh data. So that way, if I need to reverse engineer it a little bit, tell it exactly what I need to do, I can go ahead and bring that up, turn off the visibility of the part, and capture the information that I absolutely need necessary and design around it. Enhance this design a little bit more. Hey, at this point now I can maybe do some shape generator and find out if I can reduce the weight of this as well. And now I've captured the information I absolutely need from that, and I can continue on with my design. All right, and now let's talk about communication enhancements that we can do here. There's been some great strides in that as well, in the ability to, whether you're inside of your firewall or outside. Now, PDF is a lot like DWG in the sense of we're not going to go away from it. DWG is in our lives. We're going to continue using it. Same thing with PDF. Let's embrace that. What else can we do with that? We can now publish to PDF. Again, this is something we've covered in the Autodesk Virtual Academy and the What's New in Inventor. But I wanted to make sure I brought that up as a highlight here, where we can also bring in the design view representations and model properties into that 3D PDF. Sharing designs. Right now, we're looking at an AutoCAD feature actually, where we still have to share these designs. A lot of times we send out a DWG, someone has to download a viewer. Sometimes we send out a DWF, a PDF, and so forth. But now we have the ability actually to share the drawing views via the cloud, where the person viewing it does not need to log into anything, does not need to have AutoCAD, and cannot alter the DWG. They're simply viewing it and providing feedback on it. So with this A360 viewer, you simply send this person the link to it by you uploading to the cloud. All they do is go to the link and they're able to view the drawing without any extra downloads, no extra logins needed to be created or anything like that. Now on that same note, we have that ability with Inventor as well. In the Inventor 2016 R3 release, they actually gave us Inventor Connected Design with Autodesk A360. So I wanted to make sure we talked about this as well for 2017. You're able to upload this basically, and someone on an iPad can be able to view this out in the field, be able to rotate it, take a look at it, give you some feedback, and then you have it populate right inside of Inventor again, so that you have the ability to collaborate inside or outside. Also, I think what's important here when it comes to communication is how is our assembly put together. So in the past, we've used presentation views to be able to take a look at these assembly instructions, for example, repair manuals and so forth. Some of us have maybe even heard of Inventor Publisher in the past. Well, I'm here to tell you some of that is integrated into this today, now into Inventor presentations, where we have a timeline-based story panel, snapshots, and we're able to still publish this to video. One last thing on communication, I think this was an important one to highlight as well, is now we have the Autodesk desktop app, so that sits on your system tray, and it gives you updates with hot fixes and service packs, and it looks at all the different products you have installed and shows you which ones need to be updated. I've used this myself. I'm very happy to also, be able to tell everybody that this is a nice new capability that I recommend to people. It even goes above and beyond and gives you more information like tutorials and what's new and specific tips to the product that you've got selected. Right, as you see here, we have AutoCAD selected, and it gives us relevant information for AutoCAD. So let's take a quick peek at some of this live. What I wanted to show you first was taking a look at this assembly here and making a 3D PDF out of it. It's a very simple process, as you might expect. The first thing I wanted to make sure I communicated to you was that you have this welding robot here, for example, and we have different view representations so we can see different aspects of it. Now I want to communicate this outside with the 3D PDF, and it's really simple to come in here and just say, well, I want to go to Export. 3D PDF is an option we have here now, and I have the ability to select which design views I'm going to use. I have the ability to say where it's going to go, and as a matter of fact, you notice there's a template here. So this template you can actually modify if you have Adobe, and you can choose exactly the way you like it to be viewed, as well as what property information, what's the quality of it, and being able to view it. And check this out. At the bottom, you can actually attach the assembly as a step file. To me, that's huge. Those are two things that could commonly be used, right? You might need to send a step file. Doesn't assume you need it, gives you the opportunity to do that, and to add further attachments. Maybe there's some spec sheets, some more information about this part. You can start using this to sell your product a little bit better, right? Not just to communicate to the shop floor or someone who's asking for a PDF, but if you ask them why they need it, you can give them more relevant information to your product. And let's take a quick peek at what that would look like. If we come over here to the PDF, we now have a PDF that we can actually rotate, interact with, and see different views like that presentation view and leverage the different information we have available to us for these components and rotate it around and view it. Lastly, one more example I wanted to make sure I showed you was being able to create those presentation views. Really nice feature. Again, we have more information for you on the Autodesk Virtual Academy, but if I want to make a presentation view, it's really easy to come in here. I feel it's a little more intuitive. It's pretty obvious that as soon as you create a presentation file, you need to import something in, so it gives you the ability to go straight there without having to do any extra picks and clicks. And then I can create different storyboards. Maybe it's an instruction manual, maybe it's a repair manual. I can tell it exactly what kind of storyboard I want. I can take snapshots of this and be able to save these snapshots, as well as being able to select different components that I want to involve in some type of move action, for example. So if I wanted to choose these components and tweak them, you'll see it's a little more interactive. It's easier to select all the information. It's a lot faster to work with this and decide how you want this to, how long you want it to take, for example, how you want to move this, what type of trails you want, and be able to move forward with your information that you need to provide. And then we can just simply play these and see what's going on in here by looking at our timeline, for example. You know, and tying it back to what we were talking about in the innovation platform, you really have this platform already started for you, where you're able to make better decisions on creating, for example, the by using the shape generator to simplify it, to reduce the weight of it, so that maybe it's either whether it's for shipping or because you want to reduce the overall weight of an assembly, for example, then this gives you the ability to make that decision better and faster. Or if you're talking about the fabrication of it, 3D printing, we now have the ability to preview that before we try to send it out, for example. We have the ability to do CAM inside of here as well, which we've showed in previous webinars as well. If you want more information, we can definitely send that to you as well. And now we can leverage, scan data, for example, where we can reverse engineer. We can reuse this information, whether we're retrofitting or it's a brand new thing we're looking at. We have the ability to take those types of that type of information in and really start working with it. And we're able to communicate better, not just file types like PDFs, but also being able to use the viewers. Have someone have to log into something to simply view an AutoCAD file, or be able to connect with somebody and you have an Inventor file and they don't have Inventor, or they don't have the hardware resources to look at that. You can communicate much better using the cloud and mobile and social aspects that you have available to you within the product design suite that you have today.
Great, thanks, Jorge. So there's a few things I want to go over, and then we're definitely going to open it up to Q&A. First off, if some of you on the line I know aren't on Product Design Suite yet, you might have Inventor on its own, AutoCAD Mechanical on its own. I want to remind everyone that the last day to move to a suite, move to Product Design Suite and remain in a perpetual environment is July 31st. There's several promotions that exist and reasons to move today. So if you have individual products, you'll definitely want to consider that. There's always new capabilities, new trends, new things happening that you have available to you in both the product and subscription, in your subscription center website. So make sure, if you're not registered to KETIV AVA, this is a virtual academy. It's a no-charge training event we do every Thursday at 10 o'clock. And every week your team can come, log in, and learn something new inside of Product Design Suite and some of the complementary products that exist. This is a technical training session, so you'll definitely want your users to benefit from this. And this is just one of the benefits in subscribing with KETIV. And then lastly, if you're not sure how to benefit from some of the capability, it looks interesting, you know you could use some of it, you're not sure where the best place to start is. One of the things our team has been working with customers on is just doing an assessment of how they use our tools today and reporting back to you where we see areas that you can improve. And more importantly, not just where you can improve, but what areas that we see you can improve will give you the most return, right? So where to start and how to kind of plan to use the capabilities that are available to you. And then lastly, we are in the middle and just about to announce a new customized kind of ongoing training program. If you have any questions about that or have topics you want to learn inside of Inventor Product Design Suite that you've been looking forward to learning, reach out to Jorge, and real soon we'll be able to share the different topics. There's about 20 or so topics that are all topical training sessions from Product Design Suite that I know a lot of you would benefit from. So definitely reach out to Jorge if you're interested. And then again, I just want to reiterate, because we're still getting questions in from customers, just to clarify the perpetual licenses of Suite products, you can continue to buy until July 31st. Starting August 1st, all Autodesk licenses will only be available in a subscription format. So I know a lot of our customers are planning to get the licensing they need now in a perpetual format, especially when it's related to a Suite or Vault. Those products will be only in a subscription format with all the rest of the products as well, beginning August 1st. So I wanted to make sure that that's clear. And really, how you can use that information is one thing we've seen customers doing is if you are in an environment where you have 3 or more users, you have multiple locations, maybe you have users with part-time users are using software less than 60% of the time, let's say, or you have multiple facilities. Maybe you have global facilities and you share time zones. Make sure you consider and look at networking your perpetual licenses. This will give you the ability to share licensing amongst a team and reduce the number of licenses you need. So if you meet any of these requirements, you'll definitely want to call your account manager, call me or Jorge. We'd be happy to look at the licensing you have and give you the most economical option for you as we look forward into the move to subscription. And then also, if you're considering to hire over the next 6 months or so, or you're evaluating new technologies like some of the technology listed here, maybe you're still on older software, again, you'll want to make sure you move to a perpetual license, move to a Suite prior to that deadline so that you benefit from the perpetual option that exists today. So the last thing I want to point out, and then we're going to do Q&A, is again, everyone should be clear now that when the last time to buy perpetual licenses is. You have until July 31st. There's many promotions that exist, so reach out to your account manager. A couple of examples of some of the ones I see customers taking advantage of is there's a promotion for up to 40% off of Vault licenses and simulation licenses. If you acquire those at the time of your renewal, and if you have a subscription renewal coming due soon, you'll definitely want to understand that and take advantage if it's appropriate. And then if you're looking to hire over the next 6 months, KETIV has a 0% finance promotion in place. And really it gives you 0% over the course of the year, and there's no initial payment for the first 120 days. So you can kind of plan based on a longer-term plan and acquire licensing now to save based on the promos that exist. Make sure you get perpetual and not have to pay for them until later this year. So with that, again, I want to turn it over to Jorge. Jorge and I will both be here for the Q&A. And so feel free to type in your questions, and we want to make sure we answer everyone's questions. So Jorge, you want to manage a question?
Yeah, let me bring up the questions here. Okay, we have a question from Ray. Ray, if you could expand a little bit on that, actually. He's asking, will this be available with Inventor Professional 2017? So I'm just curious what exactly you meant, if there was a specific feature or tool or, other thing that you meant with that. One other question was, looks here like someone's asking about Memento, if that's part of Inventor or how that comes. So that's actually a download you can go to if you just Google Autodesk Memento, M-E-M-E-N-T-O. It'll come up right there, and you can go ahead and download it from there and start to use it today. There are videos, of course, that we can provide for you, and this webinar is being recorded as well, so that you can look at it and be able to start using it in your workflow today too. All right, we have another question here also on how do I download the latest version. So you should be able to download the latest version by going to manage.autodesk.com. You have to be a contract manager for that, or the contract manager has to give you the ability to go in there and download. but that's where you will definitely find the latest release of what you have today. And of course, if you have any issues with that, you can contact our support number. You can contact here and the number you see on screen, and we can definitely help you get the downloads for what you need today.
So Scott asks, I'll answer this question, Jorge. Scott asks, how will the cost of a perpetual license, compare to a subscription license? I'll answer that. A perpetual license today, again, you have first off until July 31st to acquire those licenses. If you buy a perpetual license today, depending on the promotion you apply, typically it's going to pay off to go that route once you get to about 2 to 2.5 years out. So what I mean by that is if you acquire a subscription license today, a subscription license will cost you the same each year going forward. There may be price increase, but it's really the same going forward. And once you get to that second to third year, you're starting to pay more than what a perpetual license would cost. And that's just a rough guideline. It varies based on the product we're talking about and what promotions you apply and all that. So definitely reach out to your account manager or call me or Jorge. We'll be happy to go over your specific scenario.
Right. And it looks like Ray expanded a little bit more. I think you wanted to know the difference between Inventor Professional and Product Design Suite. So with Inventor Professional, you wouldn't necessarily be using all the other stuff like the AutoCAD stuff, the Vault enhancements we saw. Memento is still part of it, but you wouldn't be receiving Fusion from it. So Product Design Suite is the one that gives you the ability to have access to Fusion today.
Yeah, so Inventor Professional on its own is just, you get that product. You don't get AutoCAD, you don't get the other products that exist. You have access to the subscription center, but really it's the other products that exist that you're not getting. You strictly have access to Inventor.
Right, right. And something like Fusion, you can actually download it and use it as a trial version, I believe it is, that lasts for a certain amount of time. I'm not sure what that time will be, but I know it is definitely part of Product Design Suite.
Yeah, Scott has another question here. He's asking about the Thursday training session. So all of those training sessions are online. And really you can subscribe to get invites to those sessions by going to AutodeskVirtualAcademy.com. Okay, so AutodeskVirtualAcademy.com. That will take you to a website where you subscribe, and once you subscribe, there's no cost to subscribing. Once you subscribe, what you're doing is you're giving us the ability to invite you every week to the topic that exists. So there will be one this Thursday. Again, there's one every Thursday at 10. The topic and invitation usually goes out a couple of days in advance. So once you subscribe, you'll start getting all of the invitations. We have almost 2,000 subscribers to Autodesk Virtual Academy today. It's one of the fastest growing programs that we've created. And on average, we have about 100 engineers that show up every week. And it's different people based on the topic. You don't have to come every week. You come to the topics that make sense. So we look forward to seeing you there, hopefully this week, Scott. Definitely call us if you have more questions.
And this Thursday's topic is on migrating to the latest version of software too. So definitely, if you haven't downloaded and started installing the new release, or you just started, you might be interested in joining this week's session too. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Again, if you have any questions, always feel free to contact us, and we'd be happy to take any of your questions.
Thanks, everyone.